Yesterday, I was reading the Jerusalem Post online, and what caused me to turn to this famous publication out of Israel is that the headline of the paper was, "Has Biblical Gog and Magog War Begun?" These are Jewish people representing Israel, most of them not believers, not followers of Christ, but obviously God's chosen people. And one of the main media outlets, one of their main papers and publications, both in print and digital, is the Jerusalem Post. And the headline yesterday, "Has Biblical Gog and Magog War Begun?" Listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, because oftentimes I have people that would say, well, if there was just something in the Bible that I could prove, it would help my faith. I had a mother that recently wrote and said, I have a son, and he keeps telling me, well, the Bible says that there are things that are predicted, but there's no specific prophecies in the Bible that you can point out to me. And sadly, that mother is a brand new Christian, and she wants to point out things in the Bible that are fulfilled and are definitive for her doubting son. And many of you have friends and family that doubt. Let me give you, in the infancy of this teaching, a substantial prophecy in the Bible that relates to how we're living right now. Did you know that the prophet Ezekiel in the Old Testament prophesied that in the last days an aggressive leader would rise up out of the nation of Russia with a desire to reassemble the Russian Empire, and that upon assembling that Russian Empire, that they would then take their greed for power and ally other nations in that region of the world, and that they would invade Israel out of the north. That's prophesied in detail, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Ezekiel prophesied that in the last days, many translations use the phrase, in the distant future. Ezekiel's prophecy in the 38th and 39th chapters are not prophesied for his era. Ezekiel was about 25 years old when he and his wife were taken into Babylonian captivity. At the age of 30, he became a prophet. One of his contemporaries was the prophet Daniel, who was a bit older than Ezekiel and well known and already established as a notable, respected prophet at that time. But it was Ezekiel who prophesied that in the distant future, he made it very clear, Ezekiel 38 and 39, Ezekiel's prophecy was not for the Jewish people. It was not for those in Babylonian captivity, nor was it for that era of time. He very carefully articulated in the distant future, and then gave to us details to help us know when that would be fulfilled. But Ezekiel prophesied in the last days that an aggressive leader out of Russia would arise with a greed and a lust for power, and his attempt is to bring about the reconstruction of the Russian Empire, and he'll succeed. And the Bible not only tells us that he'll succeed, but the Bible tells us that he'll not be content with bringing about the reconstruction of the Russian Empire, but will then turn his eyes towards Israel and will invade Israel out of the north along with a mighty coalition army. And we're going to get into that today. Because as I speak, the eyes of the world are currently, and when I say the eyes of the world, I mean the entire world, is watching Russia as I speak to see the details of this unfolding war. Media outlets around the globe are postulating how far is Vladimir Putin willing to go? And yesterday, as I was studying, it came on the news that they were shelling one of the nuclear plants in Ukraine. And the danger of that, most of us are aware of the horrific apocalyptic event that took place in Chernobyl. And those who understand these matters better than I have said that if they attack and blow up this nuclear plant in the Ukraine, that it potentially will be 6 times worse than Chernobyl. This is the type of madman that we're currently dealing with. Now, listen very carefully. Do not misquote me. In this teaching, I am not saying that Vladimir Putin is Gog. He is not, I am not saying, listen, I am not saying, do not walk away from this study and say Tiff Shuttlesworth told us that Vladimir Putin is Gog in Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39. However, potentially he could be. I'm not going to give you my opinion on that because it would only be speculation. And I don't believe when you teach Bible prophecy that you should run down roads of speculation. What do we always teach you? Start in the Bible, stay in the Bible, and finish in the Bible. So whether or not Vladimir Putin is Gog in Ezekiel 38 and 39, I do not know. But what I do know is Ezekiel prophesied that in the last days, an aggressive Russian leader would arise with a lust to reassemble the Russian Empire, and that upon assembling the Russian Empire, his lust will then turn towards the nation of Israel. He will amass a great horde of armies from that region of the world, and they will descend down the Euphrates River. The Bible said that the Euphrates River would actually dry up in the last days, and that these allied armies would descend out of the north down the dried up riverbed of the Euphrates to attack Israel. Well, guess which river in recent years has dried up? Now, depending upon rains and seasons, there is still some flow to that. But there have been times in recent years where the Euphrates River has dried up. And that, the Bible prophesied, would become the military highway from the north down through Syria and into the north of Israel, and this Gog and Magog war.